Welcome to the Bear Talk, your go-to Chicago Bears podcast, where a father and son break down all things Bears. From Soldier Field to Sunday showdowns, I'm your host, Dylan Weaver, and I'm joined here with my dad. How you doing, Dad?
Doing great, Dill. Just got through the bye week. We're 2-2, going back into the Commanders' house in Washington. Little revenge game action. Super excited about it. And by the way, my 15-2 prediction is still intact. And with what's going on around the NFL, there's a real possibility that that could still hold true. You got the Bengals falling apart. You got Lamar Jackson on the sideline holding his hamstring. We got a lot of real possibility out there, and I'm excited. I'm excited. The bye week's over. Football's back for the Bears. At least we got to watch a lot of other games this weekend that were good, kind of telling the tale of what's happening around the NFL. What about you?
Yeah, no, definitely enjoyed the bye week. Got to watch football and not stress waiting for the Bears to play or, stressed watching them play. So it was definitely enjoyable. And honestly, I missed watching them play, but we needed the bye week, needed the players to heal up. And speaking of players, healing up, there were still four people not at practice today with the first practice back. Kyler Gordon, TJ Edwards were back, but now we got Jaquan Brisker, which is definitely someone you don't want to see on that injury report because, we saw last game he played the whole game, but all of a sudden he wasn't practicing today, first day back. So that's a little concerning. Grady Jarrett still on the injury report. Colston Loveland as well. There was one other Bears player, I believe, that was on that injury report still. Oh, Darnell Wright, still with the elbow that he dealt with in week 3. But we'll get the official injury report on Thursday of the diagnosis of what they are and how the week's been going, if they were limited, didn't practice, stuff along those lines. But on the positive side, obviously, Kyler Gordon making his debut for this season and then having TJ Edwards back in. We're going to need it for this Commanders team as they are number one in rushing yards right now, which is what our defense struggles with. But that's not why we're here this episode. We are going to be talking a lot about Ben Johnson, as I like to call it, the Ben Johnson effect. Kind of comparing from last year's season, the first 4 games, to this year's season with Ben Johnson, as well as breaking down Caleb Williams, where he's been from his rookie year now in his second year through the first 4 games. And then lastly, we'll jump into the Bears' favorable schedule coming up and how important these next, 5-6 games are for them, setting them up for maybe a playoff spot down the line. But let's hop into it. We're going to start with the Ben Johnson side of things here, just comparing the offense side of the ball through the first 4 games from last year to this year. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a pretty sick graphic you'll be able to look at to follow along with. But in case listen on your car ride, listen on Spotify, we'll read through the stats to kind of help paint the picture for you guys. But let's just start. We'll go from stat to stat, year to year, to help where you can see the improvements, because this will show you pretty clearly the improvement it has of having Ben Johnson call your plays and what he's been doing with the offense thus far. But in 2024, our total yards average per game were 284 yards of offense per game in 2024, compared to in 2025 we're averaging around 336 yards per game through the first 4 games. Just starting with that stat alone, you can see that's about a 52 yard average, more average yards per game, which is significant. If you think about that, that's like a whole extra drive down the field, resulting in either a field goal or a touchdown when you break that down. When it comes to the passing yard specifically of those offensive yardage, last year we were averaging 196 passing yards per game, where this year we are up around 231 passing yards per game, which obviously is an indication to the play calling, but also an indication to Caleb Williams as well, averaging around 40 more yards passing per game. And this next stat is the one I find very interesting.
Hey, can I call a timeout?
Yeah.
I just want to put a spoiler alert in there. That brings Caleb short of the 4,000 yards in a season by
Yeah.
just a small one.
Yeah, it's 4 games. You're going to have games where he throws for 300. That helps boost it where he needs to be at that average. But yeah, so far he is on track a little bit right underneath it. But like I said, there'll be opportunities where he's going to have to pass more, or he's just going to have better games where he'll have some 300-yard games in there. But the one that I wanted to talk about mostly that's pretty surprising related to this year is our rushing yards average last year was around 87 yards per game rushing, where this year we're at 102 rushing yards per game, which just is confusing to me because it seems like the biggest problem on our offense right now, where we can really get things going, is if we get this rushing game going, it's really going to flip for this offense and unlock everything. It's not only going to help out Caleb, it's also just going to help out playing complementary football and putting more points on the board. But it was encouraging, I guess, to see that as bad as it is, we're still averaging more rushing yards per game thus far with Ben Johnson, but it definitely needs to be better.
So
And
what I'm
obviously,
hearing is the trade rumors for Alvin Kamara, we just need to forget those because we are doing better in the rushing game.
yeah, we are doing better in the rushing game, but as you'll see when we hop over to the next segment with Caleb Williams, I think Caleb Williams is contributing to those rushing yards quite a bit, where it really obviously the quarterback counts. It's part of the rushing game, but those are more scrambled, not designed runs. Um, Obviously, I probably could have tried to leave out Caleb's rushing yards, but for both years, I did add him in for it because it is rushing yards. And the yards per play average last year, we were averaging about 4.6. That could be a pass, a run, a scramble, anything along those lines. Whereas this year, we're averaging 5.3, which is almost a whole yard difference. And points per game, last year, we're averaging 19.25, whereas this year, we are averaging 25.25. So almost a whole touchdown more per game. And that's where you can kind of see with the final statistic where those touchdowns come along, because in 2024 through 4 weeks, we only had 6 offensive touchdowns. In 2025, we're at 11 offensive touchdowns through 4 weeks, which is almost double the amount of touchdowns. Now, if you remember last year, the Bears defense had a lot of defensive touchdowns, but like this, we are focusing on the offense. The Bears offense is clearly, every stat is an improvement compared to where we were 4 weeks ago in last season. So it's just something I really wanted to break down. It's really encouraging to see. It's also not really surprising to me either. We hired Ben Johnson for this reason, to develop Caleb Williams and to get an offense that we haven't seen in Chicago in a long time, where the offense can pull their weight and handle their side of the football.
I think the other thing you got to look at too is we're only 4 games into the Ben Johnson offense, right? And we've already improved 5 touchdowns. Obviously, the total yards per game, uh, significantly higher there. And with a bye week under their belt, players getting healthy, and you know Caleb and the whole team learning that offense even more and able to execute it, slow down on the penalties and the false starts and things of that nature. Those numbers should only get better as the year goes on, not as a cumulative, but just as a per game average, where we really, really start cooking with gas.
Yeah, and the other thing that is really interesting when you look at this, I know for viewers and your average fan, you're not really going to remember those first 4 opponents we played in 2024. But we played against the Tennessee Titans, who did have a pretty good defense, but not really, honestly. As the season went on, they're one of the worst teams. That's why they had the number 1 pick in the draft in 2025. We played the Texans, which I will credit them. They are a good defense. The Indianapolis Colts, who last year did not have that great of a defense at all, and the Los Angeles Rams, who was the same way. Their defense kind of heated up as the season went on. They started off their season, like, I want to say it was 1-5 or 1-6, and then they ended up making the playoffs because their defense figured out. But early on in the season, I would say outside of the Texans, all these other defenses were pretty average. If you look at it this year, we started off week 1 and week 2 against 2 elite defenses in the Lions and the Vikings. Very elite defense. And then obviously the Cowboys, that defense is pretty non-existent. That's a fair take. And then the Raiders, who I would say, they're probably middle of the pack, bottom average. So it's pretty fair comparison sample size. It's not like, in 2025, we had some easy opponents, easier defenses, and that's why these numbers are a lot different. I would say it's pretty comparable. If not, I would say it's probably harder in 2025, the first 4 defenses we win against, when you throw in the Lions and the Vikings in there. And Caleb had two good games. I would say probably the 2 games where he probably struggled the most, I would say, is probably the Vikings, as far as sustaining the success he had early on in that game. And then I would say the Raiders game as well, where he kind of could have had a better game, but didn't really play up to the potential the whole game. But the Lions, probably the best defense we have faced. Caleb probably played arguably his second best game. And then obviously the Cowboys, he played a great game as well. But just looking at these stats, it was really encouraging to see just so far the Ben Johnson experiment and how things are going. And like you said, it's 4 games in and we're already seeing these numbers, these growth of the numbers just in 4 games.
I think the other thing we got to look at too is these aren't garbage yard games either. These first 4 games last year to this year, where a lot of people talked about last year in his stats where it was he got all the yards in the fourth quarter. Think about the Vikings game, the Lions game. That was in the first series drives where they were scoring a touchdown. Arguably the Raiders game, we didn't have that kind of success in the first 2 drives, and it was a little bit different than the first 3 games. But those are pretty remarkable numbers, if you ask me. And I think if everyone could say it slowly with me, 15-2 is a real possibility.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring up a great point. The first 4 games of our season last year, they were all pretty much 1-score games. Actually, they all were. I'm looking at it right now. They were all 1-score games. And you could argue, if the Bears didn't blow out the Cowboys, Caleb had like 250 passing yards at halftime in that game. But since we're so far ahead, he only finished with 298 passing yards in that game. These stats for the passing side of it could be a lot more too. But now we're playing, complementary football, where we're being a little bit more strategic when we are winning these games. So it takes away from some of those yardage. It plays the opposite side of it, like you were just talking about the garbage yards. This is kind of the other side of it, where he could have got more yards but didn't have to because of the circumstances Ben Johnson put the offense in. So it is very encouraging to see. And obviously, in our next segment, we're going to break down Caleb Williams individually in his performance. But as you can see already, just with the offensive side of things, we're going to get to see Caleb Williams' numbers jump as well on the offensive side of it for Caleb Williams. So if we hop into this, it's the same thing. We're just comparing the first 4 games just to see the comparison. But in 2024, Caleb's rookie year, 787 passing yards through 4 weeks, compared to 2025, he has 927 passing yards through 4 weeks. His passing yards per game average was 196 in his rookie year, compared to this year, he's averaging around 231 yards per game. And this is where you start to see the big separation. Passing touchdowns in 2024, his rookie year, he only had 3 through 4 weeks. His passing touchdowns through week 4 in 2025, he's at 8. So that is a 5 touchdown jump in the same amount of game span. The interceptions, he's right there, both, at 2 for that. And then the completion percentage is the 1-2, where it's kind of staying around the same, which is something maybe that he definitely needs to work on. 61.97% in his rookie year, where right now he's at a 62.3%. So not too much of an increase. However, it is an increase. His rushing in 2024 as a rookie through 4 games, 16 carries, 79 rushing yards, no touchdowns, averaged around 4.9 yards per carry. And then in 2025 through 4 games, he has 24 carries for 110 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 4.58 yards per carry. And then the most important stat on this sheet, 2024 through 4 games, he was averaging, or he had 16 sacks through 4 games, which is a 4 sack per game average. Where now through 4 games, he's only at 7 sacks this year, which is right around the 1.7, 1.85 range per game, which is a great jump.
I like looking at he's tripled the number of passing touchdowns almost, and he's cut his sack rate over half. To me, that smells like a formula for success. And based on what we've seen through 4 games, I mean, granted, the 2-2, we'd like to be 3-1, given we could take back week one, but that is promising given the fact that we already talked about that it's only 4 games in. He's learning the offense better, executing at a higher level, and not taking the sacks, throwing for more touchdowns. Completion percentage, I get it, not much of an increase there, but nonetheless, a 62.3%, which is still a fair good number if you look around the league compared to some other quarterbacks out there. So I like what I'm seeing through Caleb Williams, and I think he's proving why he was the number one overall draft pick. And
Yeah.
comparable to other number one draft picks in their second year, he's having a pretty gosh darn good season.
Yeah, he's off to a great start, and obviously we're not even a quarter of a way through the season. We're about to hit the quarter way mark, but it's very encouraging, and this is why I wanted to do this, because for Bears fans out there, there are some media that paint a different picture of Caleb Williams, but these are stats, these are the truth. There's no running or hiding from it. These are the numbers, and we're just comparing simply through 4 weeks from last year compared to this year. And obviously, you could say, well, he should be showing growth. He's in his second year, but at the same time, this is what he should be doing, and he's doing it. So it's very encouraging to see. And like you said, the biggest thing for me is those sacks. And that's not only credit to Caleb, but it's credit to the O-line as well for protecting him and getting those additions that we highly push for in the offseason. But on top of that, too, that's Caleb also scrambling and avoiding sacks that could happen. Where last year, he was trying to scramble, but he often was, maybe scrambling too early, not getting the ball out fast enough. And that's why those sacks jumped up so fast and why he was the most sacked quarterback in the league last year out of all the quarterbacks. But like you said, cutting that in half is tremendous. And considering the defensive fronts we've played already, I mean, we're talking about the Vikings with Hargrave, who have a great D-line. We're talking about the Detroit Lions and Aiden Hutchinson. And then we're talking on top of that, Max Crosby and the Raiders. And to see this, that's why on this page, the sacks is the most important thing, because not taking as many sacks negates negative plays where you're behind the chains. And with the false starts, penalties that we're continuing to see through these 4 weeks, it only hurts if we're taking sacks on top of that. So to see him cut those down, like you said, more than half through 4 weeks of the season is awesome. And another stat that I wanted to bring up too that I didn't put on this page, where last year he was bottom 5 in deep ball accuracy. He is number 4 right now in deep ball. They categorize this category as deep ball catchable rate. So this factors in how high percentage of the throw is, and then on top of it, how catchable it is. And he's number 4 right now with a 68.8% catchable deep ball, which for all the people out there saying Caleb Williams can't throw a deep ball, you can throw that out the window too. 4th out of all quarterbacks in the NFL, minimum 20 passing attempts. And this is what you love to see. And they classify that deep ball as 20 plus yards or more down the field. So you love to see it. It's very encouraging. And that's why this episode is titled The Ben Johnson Effect. This is Ben Johnson coaching. This is why coaching matters. This is the coaching we should have seen last year with a rookie quarterback, number 1 overall. This isn't a second or third round quarterback you took a chance on. You didn't know what you were going to get. This was the number 1 consensus quarterback in the league to get drafted. And it's just a shame we didn't get to see these results last year. And then this year should have been a huge, huge jump going into year 2. But at least at this point, we're getting to see it now with a real coach who's invested in Caleb And like we've said, this pairing is gonna happen more than likely for the next decade in Chicago. We're gonna get to see this pairing unless things completely fall off the rails. But so far through 4 weeks, it's more than encouraging as a Bears fan. And granted, you could say, like you said, we should be 3-1. We're 2-2 though. We're 500. The season is more than still alive. But it's just very encouraging to see this through 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I know we called it the Ben Johnson effect, but a little bit is the Ryan Poles effect. Is that, that sack rate cut in half? Is that Cooney and Dahlman and Jonah Jackson? Because that line, right? I mean, that shows improvement, right? If you look at the numbers never lie. That could be part of it.
No, and that's why I brought it up. I said when I brought up the sack statistic, it is credit to the O line as well because they're holding up their end, giving Caleb a clean pocket to operate in more times than not. And on top of it too, though, I think it is a credit to Caleb as well with him getting the ball out of his hands a lot faster. We've seen that many times through these first 4 games of the season compared to last year. Like you're seeing him take those quick throws. You're seeing before the snap and after post snap he knows where he needs to go with the ball. He's reading coverages. He's getting the ball out of his hands a lot quicker. And then when things aren't open, that's when you're going to see him, do his abilities that got him drafted number 1 overall with extending plays outside the pocket, being creative when things aren't there, using his ability to scramble. So we're seeing a lot of that. And obviously it's only 4 games and we're going to need to see it continue down the stretch of the whole season. But this is encouraging to start. And I think a good idea for us is to do these, every 4 games. We'll have an episode like this and keep comparing and seeing, the differences through each kind of quarter of the season. Now that they play 17 games, we can't do 4, 4, and 4, but we can still, break these down into quarters and see how he's progressing through each quarter of the season as well. But I just thought it was really interesting when I started doing all the statistics on it and breaking everything down just to see how much improvement there really has been. And it kind of confirms what we've been seeing with our eyes. You might see something with your eyes where you're thinking it's better, but statistics wise, it might not be better. This, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're seeing it with your eyes, and then the numbers are also reflecting what you're seeing. So it's very encouraging to see. But that just leads us into our next point of, this schedule coming up for the Bears. And I wanted to bring this up because, like you said, we should be at 3-1 right now after this bye week, but we're 2-2. We're not going to complain. And we're at 500, season still alive, but these next 6 games coming up are going to be really important. So on the screen, we have it, just the matchups coming up. We got the Commanders, obviously, this week, the big redemption game, as you mentioned earlier in the show. And then we head to the Saints, or the Saints come to Soldier Field. We go to Baltimore, where you've already mentioned Lamar Jackson nursing a hamstring injury. You never know. We've experienced that on our team with TJ Edwards and Jalen Johnson. These things take time to heal. It really depends on the player and the case of the injury. So we don't know. He may or may not be there by the time we get there. Even if Lamar is there, I will say their defense looks compromised at the moment. They're outside of the Cowboys, they're the second defense giving up the most points and yards per game is the Ravens, which is unheard of for the Baltimore Ravens. Then we head to Cincinnati, who news today, they did just sign Joe Flacco, which could help, but at the same time, just think about it. Joe Burrow got hurt because his O-line couldn't protect him. Now you're putting 40-year-old Joe Flacco back there. I don't know if it's, who knows? That's a month down the road. He might not even be healthy by the time he gets there. And then the Giants come and visit us, and then we wrap it off with, playing the Vikings again, who we should have won the game the first time. I think we're going to be all right the second time. We just need to finish and play the whole 4 quarters of the game, not just 3 quarters. But look at these records too. I put them on the screen as well. The Commanders 3-2. Yeah, they're a good team. They were in the playoffs last year. They have Jaden Daniels, the Jaden Daniels versus Caleb team. That's the one game on here where I really think if we can win this game, there's a real possibility we can win 6 of these games, if not them. The Saints, not scared of them. They're 1-4, not a threat. And like you said, the Ravens, if Lamar's not there, I have a lot of confidence in that game. And even if Lamar is there, like I was mentioning, their defense, I think that could be a shootout game between Caleb and Lamar Jackson. And it could be a good game for Caleb to prove himself in that game as well. Then the Bengals, not worried about them. They got 2 elite receivers over there. They're trying to find a quarterback to get them the ball, but on top of that, their defense is atrocious. Then the Giants, 1-4 as well. Not a great team. They're figuring out their stuff. Malik Neighbors out for the year. They have a good front seven, but outside of that, it's pretty bad. And then same thing with the Minnesota Vikings. Great defense. I think their offense is just same kind of scenario. They're trying to find a quarterback to be able to run the offense to its potential. So there's a lot of winnable games coming up, and I don't know your side of it, but I seriously could see the Bears winning. At a bare minimum, it should be 4 of these games should be won, but I really could see them winning 5 of these games, going 5-1 to help set them up. That would put them at 7-3 if they win 5. That could put them 7-3 with 7 games left. You win 3 of those last 7, there's a good chance we are in that wild card spot of the playoffs, and that's putting the chances in our favor.
Yeah, I got a couple thoughts on this. Obviously, the Saints are the Aints, and I'm not worried about them. You look at that Ravens team without Lamar Jackson, and even with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry isn't Derrick Henry this year. He had that first big game of the year, and then since then, he's been on the struggle bus and hasn't got going. So, I, I in the beginning part of the year, the Ravens were one of my losses, simply just because of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and their previous performances. I think it's definitely a winnable game. Um, the Bengals are the Bengals. Um, I kind of wonder about the Bengals though picking up Flacco today. I wonder if the Bengals GM put in a coach to Ryan or a call into Ryan Poles and asked about
Tyson
Tyson
Bagent.
Bagent being available, and I wonder if Ryan Poles said, "Hey, remember that defensive end we wanted really bad?" So I wonder if that was a conversation. Maybe not. Giants. I know they're 1-4. Jackson Dart's looking good. I do like him, and
You are crazy.
I know I like him though.
Jackson Dart, yeah, he brings the
Ah,
momentum, but he is terrible. I'm sorry.
and
I thought
then
the same thing coming in. Granted, it's been 2 games, but he looks awful.
give him
And Cam
time.
Scatterbo, don't even get me started. Cost me
That's
about
where I was
thousand.
going.
He costed me $1,000 this weekend because he couldn't get in the end zone.
Hey,
Fumbled the
he
ball
needed a new
twice.
pair of gloves. He needed a new
Yeah,
pair of gloves.
yeah. Don't get me started with him.
And then the Vikings, Carson Wentz, who knows what's going to happen with JJ? Should have won that game though in week 1. I want to go back to the Commanders game though. Big Monday night game coming up. Uh, gonna be exciting. Obviously, it is you can call it the revenge game. I think it's called the Tyreek Stevens got his head on straight, and we ain't got to worry about it this year because he's playing lights out. And I know we already passed the Caleb Williams stats, but I know you are the stat master and can rattle these off the top of your head. You know, last year Caleb Williams to Jaden Daniels, what was the comparison? What do we got there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you look at the whole picture, if you're a Bears fan and you're saying Caleb had a better year, you're delusional. It's safe to say Jane Daniels definitely had the better rookie year. There's a reason though it's called a career, not one season. And if we were to compare stats, granted, I've already done this too. Just arguing with a couple of Packers buddies who still want to bring up the Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams stuff, but I did compare him, especially after this week. Jaden's only played 3 games. I compared Caleb's first 3 games to his 3 games, and Caleb is beating him in almost every stat category there is, and it's the same amount of games. I know Caleb's technically played 4 and Jaden's only played 3 because of the injury, but when you match them up game per game, and I went the first 3 games of Caleb's and the first 3 games of Jaden. Caleb is, as of right now, he is having a better season statistically than Jaden Daniels. Now, it's a long season, but so far, Caleb Williams is, handling his side of that thing. Now, obviously, this weekend this Monday night coming up plays a huge factor in that because you can have better statistics, but at the end of the day, if you lose this game, they're going to say, oh, you lost to him head to head. blah, blah, blah. And who knows? It depends on the type of game it is. If it's a shootout and they both play good, it's a little bit of a different story. If Caleb plays good and Jaden plays bad and we still lose the game somehow, you can weigh that in there too as well. But as a Bears fan and just being honest and in touch with reality, Jaden Daniels was the better quarterback year one. No excuses. I'm not even going to throw coaching staff in there. The 3 different OCs Caleb had, Jaden Daniels had a better rookie year. But
By how much though?
It's not a large margin is the point, though. It's
Like that.
It is. I think he only literally had 43 more passing yards off the top of my head. It's nothing over 100. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
He had about, I want to say 43 more passing yards than Caleb. Caleb had less interceptions. I think Jaden Daniels had more touchdowns because he's a runner as well. He's a lot more of a dual threat quarterback. But yeah, it wasn't that big of a stretch. And considering the circumstances of both their seasons, it's a lot different. But Jaden Daniels did have the better season. He took his team to the NFC Championship, and that's a huge part of it. But as I always say, I've mentioned it many times on the show, wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. Yes, a quarterback plays a big factor into that. I would probably say about anywhere from 35 to 50% of that is on the quarterback and the offense as a whole, but it's not the whole thing. There's 2 sides of it. But there's really 3 sides of it. It's 3 phases of a game that, contribute to a win and a loss. But Jaden did have the better rookie season. And I know later on this week, we'll have our, Washington Commanders versus Bears pregame, our thoughts, keys to victory, stuff like that. And we can break down that a little bit more because it's obviously the talk. It always is. It's Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams. But so far, even if we're just going off of this year, I think Drake May statistically is the best quarterback right now out of the class, and then Caleb's right behind him. And then obviously Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix is right in that range as well. But I think so far we're seeing, this year it's a little bit different a story. But like we said, it's early in the season. You got a lot more games to go, and I'm not jumping ahead of my skis either. We got a long season to go, and I want to see this, play out through the rest of the season. But when I just look at it in a full circle, picture, seeing the offense, we're still dealing with a lot of false starts, holding, stuff like that. If this stuff can get negated, these numbers are only going to continue to increase and go up. Not only on top of that, if we can start getting this running game going, whether that's bringing in a running back, which doesn't seem like the case, but if the running game can start getting a little bit better, it's only going to open up everything else. And we've talked about it many times. I know this was kind of an offensive show, but this defense, we're getting Kyler Gordon back. It's confirmed. He's good to go for the Washington Commanders. TJ Edwards is back. This defense, we've seen them play missing an arm and a leg for the first 4 weeks of the season, and now we're going to get to see them at full force. And you best believe when it's at full force, it's going to be really dangerous. And Kyler Gordon as well. Dennis Allen was raving about him all preseason going into the season and how he's going to use him. He's like their quarterback on the side of the defense who's going to be doing X, Y, Z all over the field. This defense is going to, I expect it to only get better because it's the run defense especially has been horrendous through 4 weeks. It's honestly crazy that we are 2-2 considering how much we've let some of these teams run over us in the run game specifically. But it's also props to the secondary, which we had a high grade on them going into the season. They're causing turnovers. I think the Bears are second in the league in turnovers. Obviously now that's the other thing that a lot of fans are going to have to remember. We're going to probably fall back in a lot of these statistics when you rank them because we had this early bye week. Teams are going to have an extra game on us. And now we're going to kind of really have to wait towards the back half of the season to really compare, especially Caleb, where he's at compared to the rest of the quarterbacks, because
apples to apples.
A lot of these quarterbacks are going to have an extra game, which are going to make their stats look better. But in reality, they had an extra game. So we're going to have to wait to compare a lot of that. But so far it's been a great sign from Caleb. And I'm excited to keep seeing the pairing going. I only think it's going to get better. Ben Johnson said it himself. We're going to be playing our best ball when it comes around December, January. So just very positive signs. And I can't stress it enough. These next 6 games are massive. If the Bears can win Monday night, which I do think is going to be a very tough game, especially we don't know if this run defense is going to improve for the Bears. It's going to be a tough game, but if they can win that game, I seriously could see them winning all 6 of these games, and I'm not even
Do you know what?
exaggerating when I say that.
Do you know what they would be then?
8-2, and it'd be
8-2.
great.
And you know what that does for the Bears' psyche?
Oh, it would it's momentum. It's like a
It is.
snowball just
It's
flying
like the
down a hill.
Commanders game last year. It's just like the Commanders game last year. Because if you remember, they started pretty well last year. It's the Commanders game
Yeah, they were
that
four
put
and
them
two
in the
going into that Commanders game last
and
year,
they went into the downward spiral, right? They
and I
didn't
don't and I don't even think it was the Commanders game as a whole. I think it was that one play, that one sequence of plays where it tanked the whole season. And
yeah.
let's
And you
not
could
see a
say
repeat of that this year.
right, and you could say too that Caleb Williams didn't lose that game. Actually, Caleb brought us back to be winning at the very end of the game, and then it was a a bunch of different sequence of events that the coaching staff and
I was about to
you know
say the coaching is the reason
well
we lost
yeah
that game, because if you remember, that's the game where we handed Doug Kramer, offensive lineman, the ball on the 1 yard line and he
right
fumbled. That game
that,
shouldn't even been a Hail Mary away for the Commanders to win, but at the end, with bad coaching, that's what it came down to. And
that's why this is called the Ben Johnson effect because Ben Johnson's not giving Kramer the ball on the 1 yard line.
yeah, and especially, we've seen already. Ben Johnson loves the trickery, but he ain't that trickery dumb to hand
Oh,
the ball to a lineman on the 1 yard line in a game where, so be it, last year the offense was struggling last year in
speaking
that
of
game.
trickery, last year, how many flea flickers did you see it in throughout the season?
I don't
Minimal,
even
right?
think we saw one.
Right.
I'm gonna
No,
be
I'm not.
honest.
I'm not even talking for us as a team. I'm talking about the NFL in general, right? You like normally you get the Monday night Chris Berman, where he's the great plays of the weekend, and you might get one. This weekend, how many flea flickers did you see attempted? And I
Yeah,
mean attempted.
there was a lot of them, and
I
it's because
was
people are tagging off of Ben Johnson.
I
They're
know.
like, why
I was
not?
scared of our flea flicker and the ball in the air, and I thought it was going to be a fumble or a turnover, whatever. These flea flickers that were executed this weekend, probably some of the worst I've ever seen. It was almost like a reverse handoff. They were so close to each other
Yeah,
in the execution of the flea flicker. But Ben Johnson really is not only have an effect on the Bears team and the players and the organization, but around the league because they're trying to mimic. And you know what they say,
it's a copycat league. Yeah.
imitation is the best form of flattery, and yeah, I think that's how you say it. But it's pretty amazing watching all the games I did watch this weekend and saw so many attempted flea flickers that were pretty much executed horribly. Um, but yeah, we're gonna be 8-2 at the end of week 11 after we play the Minnesota Vikings. My 15-2 prediction still alive. All the haters when we're 8-2, I just want to see comments in the inbox and the direct messages saying, "Wow, he's a true Bears fan because he believes." And as well as I know, I am the biggest critic of the Bears. I mean, you can go. I was looking at my Facebook memories from last year and the last few years about how bad it was. But I see 8-2 real convincingly. And then I think the momentum, the confidence booster, the further execution of this offense that Ben Johnson is putting together. And we've only seen 4 games of his game plan in there, right? It's only going to get more complicated and sophisticated as the season goes on. So the defenses aren't going to be able to adapt and react to it. And 15-2 is a reality. I hate to say it. Mark my words, write it down, clip it, whatever you got to do. 15-2 is a reality. You laugh all you want. Play it safe with the 10-7, like you were saying. 15-2 is it.
I
I
mean,
believe it in my heart.
I'm glad you believe. I'm just saying there's a lot of games left, and I will say if we are 8-2 come this time, there is a good chance. There's not a good chance that they still win the rest of the season out. That would be insane.
Oh,
That would mean they win 15 games in a row. But
how many did we lose in a row?
10.
Okay, so we can
I'm
do
just
it.
I agree. It's definitely doable, but the reason why these next 6 games are important is because the back half of our schedule is a gauntlet. It is pretty hard. There's the Cincinnati Bengals in there who, yes, don't have a good offense, but their defense is really good. And then we have the Packers twice, the Lions again, the 49ers who are 4-1, the Seahawks who look great. I mean, there is a lot of tough games down the stretch, and that's why these next 6 games are really important because let's be honest, what are the chances they win 15 games in a row, Dad? And put the delusion aside.
The chances are slim to none.
Exactly. So
But
these next 6 games are very
you
important.
just got to believe.
And at
Did the
worst,
Raiders play the Seahawks yet?
I don't think so.
I thought they did.
They might have. I don't know.
And then this is bear math right here. You talk about girl math. This is bear math. We saw the Cowboys Packers game, right? They ended in a tie. We
Yeah, but
beat the Cowboys.
But you can do the double standard with that though. That's why you got to be careful with that because they can do this. The Colts just beat the Raiders 40-3, and we beat them by
That
1
was
point.
crazy.
So
That was crazy.
you gotta be careful with doing that. I understand your point, but I will say, like, I think college is a lot more telling of matchups like that where you can do that compare and contrast, where NFL is more of a week-to-week league. Like these teams get better or get worse literally week by week, and it's hard to really compare apples to apples when you're doing that because, like I just brought up a good example, it's you can say that like as the Bears defense, you can say we're the team that held the Cowboys to the lowest points and they're the number 1 scoring offense right now. But then you can also look at it the other way and we let the Raiders put 25
let me just
on us.
Enjoy this moment.
I agree. I'm just saying you got to be fair.
Remember when I said bottle it up after that win, and I said just bottle that up because there's going to be some rough patches, and you're going to have to open that bottle back up. Right now, I'm
we do. We
enjoying
got to
a little
ride
bit
the
of the
high.
bottle
Yeah,
because
we
the
got to
low
ride
could
it.
be coming.
Oh, it could I don't think it's coming here, but I'm telling you that back half of the season could get scary. And that's why these next 6 games, we need to win as many of them as possible to make the back half of that schedule that much easier because you think about it. I think 10 wins is that mark where that wild card, you can seriously become a contender in that wild card. 11 wins is probably you're safe. You're in the playoffs, but 10 is where you're going to be in that competition with other teams. And we already have lost 2 in the division, which is not good. And these games coming up, look at this. The Washington Commanders, they're in the NFC. New Orleans Saints, they're in the NFC. Then we got 2 AFC teams and then back to 2 NFC teams. These NFC teams are the ones you really do need to win because when it comes down to those ties at the end of the year, it comes down to those divisional records in your division. AFC opponents are kind of less. So if you lose them, it's not as important as losing to the NFC team. So it's a lot different. I will say though, I do have confidence in the Bears at least finishing 3rd in the division because the Minnesota Vikings, I was looking at their schedule and they have an absolute gauntlet coming up. And it's part of it is because if you don't know NFL schedule makers out there, wherever you finish in your division, that's the other division teams you play where they finished. And I'm telling you, I was looking at their schedule and it is insane. Their games that they were supposed to win were all early. The rest of their schedule, I don't think they have one easy game left on their schedule. And with their quarterback situation, not right now trying to figure all that out, they are going to have a rough sledding the rest of the way. But
Carson Wentz is making Josh Dobbs look like a gosh darn All-American. That's for sure.
Yeah. And Carson Wentz, I don't know how many more hits he can take. He every time he gets hit, he is wincing, getting his shoulder wrapped. He's got a long season to go if he's going to be their guy. Obviously, JJ's hurt, but there are some theories out there that he's hurt. But at the same time, it was Kevin O'Connell saying, all right, you might need to sit a little bit longer and learn. Don't know if you're the guy, which just like with Caleb, it's JJ McCarthy's played 2 NFL games. So everyone relax, let him get his fair share of, an equal opportunity to show what he's got. So many times people write quarterbacks off 2-3 years in. The perfect example is Josh Allen. Josh Allen was god-awful his first 2 seasons. It wasn't until that 3rd season where you started to see a glimpse of hope where, you saw who Josh Allen was. It takes time to develop. Some guys, take off that first year. And then they have the CJ Stroud where they decline a little bit. And you're seeing a little bit of that with Jaden Daniels. Granted, it's early in the season. He had that great rookie year. And, it's not that he's having a bad season, but when you set such a high bar, it's going to come down at times and people hold you
Sophomore
to
slump.
that. Yeah, it happens. So every quarterback's different. Things happen. And obviously over here, I think the biggest thing is the coaching difference. And we're seeing that already. I think that was the whole part of this episode. The majority part of it was the Ben Johnson effect and how things have already looked significantly better than Caleb's rookie year. And that's awesome. But I don't got anything else. We just kind of wanted to get this out there. We weren't able to get an episode out the bye week. I know you were traveling. We were kind of trying to find a good time to get it recorded, but I think right now is a perfect time before the Bears take on the Commanders. But I don't got anything else to say. I don't know if you want to throw anything else in there before we wrap it up here.
I think with the bye week and everything coming up, we should just give a shout out to Mama Bear Talk, who celebrated her birthday this last weekend. So got to hang with her. That was a lot of fun and some great hospitality. Some from some friends down there. So that was a good time to celebrate Mama Bear Talk's birthday. What a good time it was.
Yeah. Couldn't come at a better time during the bye week because
It was
otherwise
like the Bears planned it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely crazy the bye week because I'm most of our fans probably don't know I am a Tennessee fan, but Tennessee was on a bye this week. The Bears were on a bye, and got to watch. It was almost like perfect timing. Got to watch the Cubs, and they did win that first series. However, they're down 0-2 now against the Brewers. They got to reverse sweep them. Not looking too good, but hey, they made the playoffs. They brought some life to the city of Chicago. And then obviously tonight's opening night for the Blackhawks. So Chicago sports are back in full swing. Hopefully the Bears can pick off where the Cubs left off and have a good regular season and hopefully different results than the Cubs are showing right now in the playoffs. But
it's funny you brought up the Cubs because remember at the trade deadline during the summer with the Cubs, and you're expecting a big splash, right? Because they think they're going to go on this big playoff run, and they didn't make any. So with that being said, we know the trade deadline's coming in the NFL. Will the Bears, should they make it through these next couple of games with wins, do you think they make a big trade?
It depends on what you mean by big. I don't see any superstar player coming over here. I do think this, depending on these next couple games, I do think that running back door is wide open. I really do like Elvin Kamara. He is a little bit older, but as a Tennessee fan, as I just mentioned, Alvin Kamara is a stud. There's another one that I think is a lot more likely, which is Breece Hall with the Jets being 0-5 now. I think that one is a lot more likely just because we don't play them. We play the Saints in 2 weeks, and you never know. It could get to. I think that, yeah, we play the Ravens right before the trade deadline. And I don't know, maybe the Saints after we play them would be open to doing that. You never know. But if I do expect anything, I do think it's a running back because for the offense specifically, I think they are a running back away from fully taken off. And we're already seeing this offense put up numbers we haven't seen in a while on a per game basis. But if they get a running back that can add a running game in there, it's really going to take off. And I think we could see, that Lions offense we did see where they're putting up 30, 35 points a game easily. I think we could see that with a running back change. And who knows, maybe they're going to come out of the bye. I'm sure they scheme some things up, are going to fix what they need to fix. And maybe they'll give it another couple weeks to see where it's at. If there's no improvements, then they might make the splash. And it also depends, like you said, it depends if they win or lose these games because you don't want to make a splash too early and it ends up backfiring because when you do make these bigger plays, it's because you're going to be in the contention later on. So we'll see. It really depends how these next couple of weeks really pan out.
With this being the Ben Johnson effect episode, and obviously you clearly pointed out the impact he's had on the team and getting the most out of the players that we have on the roster. I think we won the Ben Johnson sweepstakes because if you look at the Aaron Glenn effect, 0-5 with the Jets. I think he might be a one-hit wonder over there. That's not looking really good.
Yeah, it's this same thing like we were just saying with the quarterbacks, with the coaches. Let's be honest, when you go to these down to the dump organizations who the Bears have been for a while, the Jets have been for a while, you have to give them, if you really want a coaching cycle, like you need to give Aaron Glenn a couple years. But yes, so far it is not off to a great start nonetheless, but you have to get, especially with coaches. I almost feel like you need to give coaches more times than rookie QBs because it takes a while to tear down a roster. You have to remember these coaches come into rosters that they have no control over, and they don't really, it takes time to let them build up a team of what they want, draft picks, personnel, build them around, and keep people that fit the culture and get people out that don't fit the culture. Same thing we'll see with Ben Johnson. After this year, we're probably going to see some names that might shock us that get let go or get traded away because they don't fit what Ben Johnson wants in his culture, or whether that's the play style as well with scheme. You never know. It's with first years, when it gets in that second year, you're gonna see a lot of people go away that you might not expect, but that's what the coaching is, and you got to give them a cycle. I would say you'd successfully need to give him at least 3 cycles, Aaron Glenn, especially considering the Jets. I think the Bears and the Jets are at 2 different points. I think it's fair to say the Bears have a better roster on paper than the Jets. So it takes some time. And
Is it
but
safe to say that Aaron Glenn is not trying to tank the season so he could pick up the quarterback of next year? Because Arch Manning's definitely not going to be the number one drafted quarterback next year.
yeah, I mean, this is probably the worst year to be the number 1 overall pick. There is not a lot of quarterbacks that I'm watching in college right now where I'm like, yeah, that guy's probably going to be a good player. I'm not even saying great, just good. I like that one guy out of Oregon. I think that quarterback is going to be slinging it in the NFL. But outside of that, I'm seeing a bunch of guys that I'm like, I don't even think they're going to make it. Like the QB class that we're talking about with the Jaden Daniels, Drake May, the Caleb Williams, all those
Arguably one of
guys.
the best ever.
Yeah, not whoa, okay, relax. Not best ever, but it is a very good QB class nonetheless that doesn't come every year, doesn't come every decade either. These are kind of once in a while they come along, and that's when you kind of want to get those quarterbacks in there.
Is it
But
generational?
it's still early. It definitely could be. I mean, I do like a bunch of the quarterbacks in the class. I think another quarterback in the class, I know we're kind of rambling, so why not? But Michael Penix, I do like him. He's had some good games. He's had some terrible games, but I do think Michael Penix is a good quarterback. I really like a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. Drake May was highly stouted. He just had a big win against the Bills in prime time, and he looked really good. And then obviously Jaden Daniels had his rookie year. He looks like he's going to be a good quarterback. Bo Nix, he's got Sean Payne over there. He's looking to do just fine. So it is a very good quarterback class, and we're going to get to see battles of these guys for probably a lot of time to come for the foreseeable future between them, because it really is a good quarterback class with a lot of young talent in there that are going to get to develop over the years. And maybe it might be like the Eli Mannings and Peyton Manning's battles like that I got to see just as I started getting into football. But hopefully we do get to see those rivalries, because that's what we love about sports. That's what makes it is what it is, the rivalries, the camaraderie of fans going back and forth, the talking Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady. That's what we do it for. That's what it's all about, being a fan, is cheering on your guy. But yeah, I think that'll do it for the episode. I think we did a good amount of talking and rambling here at the end, but that's why we do this. We love it. Make sure to check in later in the week. We'll have Monday midday. We'll release our pregame episode for the matchup against the Commanders and the Bears. And then as always with our post-game show, probably will get uploaded Tuesday morning, just due to it being a night game. With it being later, it probably will get uploaded the following day. But that'll do it for this episode. We'll catch you on Sunday. But for now, bear down.